After my car accident, I wrote to my family, I can't wait for you to come. 3 hours after they pulled my broken body from the wreck, that was all I sent to the family group chat. No photos. No explanation. I didn't tell them I'd been cut out of the car with hydraulic shears, or that I could barely breathe without pain. I assumed that if there was any love left in them, if not love then at least obligation, they would come. At that point I already knew my left knee was destroyed. Doctors were talking about multiple surgeries, rod screws, and metal plates. My right hand sat in a soft cast. Breathing hurt. My memory was foggy and a nurse kept coming in to ask if I knew what day it was. I thought that seeing someone from home would keep me grounded. I believed they'd drop everything. My mom read the message first. I saw the read receipt under her name. Nothing else. 14 hours later my dad replied. I still remember how calm it sounded, no punctuation, no emotion. We're not going to waste our time on a loser. I read it once, then again. When the nurse came in to adjust my fore, I tilted my phone away like it was nothing. I didn't want to explain. I didn't want her pity. Deep down I wasn't even surprised. I'd known who they were for years. I just hadn't wanted to say it out loud. Growing up I was always the one picking up the slack. I worked through high school. I paid for my own prom dress, my own phone, my own gas. At 22 I took out a small business loan to buy an old corner store near downtown that no one wanted. The first time I walked in it smelled like rot and old bleach. But I cleaned it. I repaired the shelves. I learned how to order produce in bulk, how to run payroll, how to argue with vendors without raising my voice. When the store finally turned a profit, when it started building a real reputation in our small town, my parents began showing up. At first it was small things. Can you spot us for groceries this week? Then it was car repairs. Then rent. Then cash. They treated my money like a subscription service and I let them. I told myself it was family. I told myself this was how things were supposed to work. My dad used to say we raised you right? So now it was my turn to take care of them. Somehow I believed that. But all it took to shatter the illusion was one sentence and a totaled car. For the first few days I didn't respond to anyone. I didn't post on social media. I stayed quiet in the hospital watching the fluorescent lights flicker and letting my phone ring unanswered. Only one person kept calling, Brianna, my younger sister, 6 years younger than me. She left for college in Minnesota and never looked back. She'd always hated how things were at home, though she never said it outright. She just got out. When she saw what had happened to me, she started messaging constantly. At first it was simple check-ins, then little jokes, then long FaceTime calls from her dorm room while she ate noodles and ranted about finals. I didn't tell her everything, I didn't want to add weight to her life, but she figured it out anyway. One night she said, "You know what hurts the most?" I'm not even shocked. "They've always used you, Monica." I didn't answer. I just let her voice fill the silence of that sterile hospital room. The real turning point came the morning I saw my dad walk into my store on the security camera feed. I had the app open on my phone half out of habit and I recognized his jacket immediately. He didn't greet anyone. He went straight toward the back, toward the safe. Luis, my manager, intercepted him. They argued for a moment. I couldn't hear the audio, but the body language said everything. Luis stood his ground. My dad pointed toward the office and said something. Luis folded his arms. I texted Luis right then, "No access. Not even to use the bathroom." He replied, "Understood." That same afternoon I called my lawyer. I updated the store's legal access list, changed the business bank account passwords, canceled the grocery stipends I'd been sending my mom automatically every month, and removed both of my parents from the payroll system they were never supposed to be in. 3 days later the calls started. One missed call, then another, then 10 more. When I didn't answer they showed up at the hospital. I heard them in the hallway before I saw them, loud, dramatic, trying to sound shocked by my condition. I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. The nurse told them I wasn't up for visitors, and eventually they left. That night Brianna sent me a photo of a bus ticket. She was coming home. The first sign they realized I was serious came 4 days after I cut them off. At 9:17 a.m. Luis texted me, "Your mom came in asking for eggs. Said you'd cover it." I told her you said no exceptions. I didn't reply right away. I just stared at the message like it was written in another language. I knew she expected me to cave to come running the second she showed up. Instead, she left empty-handed. No argument. No scene. She just turned and walked out. That silence was louder than any fight we'd ever had. They were waiting me out. That was the game. They'd done it before, gone quiet, ignored me, frozen me out until I broke, and tried to make peace by apologizing for things I hadn't done. And I used to fall for it every time. But not anymore. The thing about people who need you is that they can't ignore you forever. 8 days after the accident, I finally stepped back into my store. My cane clicked against the tile like a clock counting down. I wasn't ready, but I went anyway. I had to see it. I had to know it was still mine. No one said anything when I walked in, but Luis looked up from the register and gave me a small nod like we both understood something had shifted. What surprised me wasn't how exhausted I felt, it was how peaceful the place was. No dad pretending to do inventory in the back while waiting to skim cash from the till. No mom helping herself to snacks like she owned the place. No guilt trips. No emotional blackmail. Just shelves, customers, and the steady hum of fluorescent lights overhead. It felt like breathing clean air after years of smoke. I almost smiled. Then they started circling back. It was slow at first. One afternoon while Luis and I were unloading a produce delivery, there was a loud knock on the glass front doors. I didn't even have to look. It was my dad. He stood there in broad daylight, hands in his pockets, chin lifted like the door should open simply because he'd shown up. He mouthed something. I didn't care what. Luis glanced at me. I didn't respond. I just kept unboxing tomatoes. My dad didn't leave right away. He knocked again, slower this time, then stood there staring through the glass. Eventually, he turned and walked off. No message. No apology. The next day my mom appeared. She didn't knock. She didn't even cross the street. She sat on a bench outside the salon across from the store watching the entrance. She stayed there for 20 minutes, maybe longer. A customer pointed her out, whispering under their breath. I didn't go outside. I didn't flinch. That night Brianna called. She sounded tired, campus noise buzzing behind her, some party happening down the hall. She told me our mom had called her pretending to check in but really fishing for sympathy. She'd said I was having a mental breakdown and being cruel to the people who raised me. Brianna didn't entertain it for a second. She told her maybe the people who raised you should have actually shown up when you needed them. Then she went quiet and said, I think he'll come back after finals. I've already talked to one of my professors. If I can get my shifts covered, I can stay for a bit, just until you're stronger. I told her she didn't have to do that. She said, I know. I want to. Even then I asked her to wait. Deep down I didn't want her anywhere near this mess yet. And honestly, I wanted to see how far our parents were willing to go without her around to smooth things over. A few more days passed. Nothing. No calls. No knocks. Just silence again. But it didn't last. A letter showed up at my apartment. No return address, just my name in my mother's sharp handwriting. The envelope was wrinkled like it had been gripped too tightly for too long. Inside was a single line scrawled in black pen, you don't understand what you're doing to this family. That's when it hit me. They weren't sorry. They were scared. Scared of losing their free ride. Scared of looking bad. Scared of having no one left to use. They thought guilt would bring me back, but that version of me died on the side of that road. The letter wasn't dramatic, just a single sentence on cheap lined paper folded sloppily like it had been written in a rush. You don't understand what you're doing to this family. That was it. No apology. No question. Just blame disguised as concern. I left it on the table for a couple of days unread by anyone but me, then tossed it in the trash beneath a pile of old mail and expired coupons. I didn't feel anything. Not anger. Not hurt. Not even surprise. It was just another attempt to twist the knife without admitting they were the ones holding it. I honestly thought that would be the end of it. That they'd get the message, go quiet, maybe stew in their own mess for a while. Instead, they started creeping back in, slowly, almost strategically, like they were testing the locks on doors they used to walk through without knocking. It began with small, strange coincidences. My dad showed up at the post office while I was there picking up a package. I hadn't seen him in person since the accident. He pretended to flip through birthday cards, but I knew better. I caught him watching me in the reflection of the glass door. I didn't speak. I walked past him, collected my package, and left. 2 hours later, a voicemail appeared from a number I didn't recognize. Saw you today. You look tired. You shouldn't be doing everything by yourself. Maybe we both said things we didn't mean. Let's talk. I blocked the number without responding. A few days later, Luis texted me, your mom was in here again. Didn't buy anything. Just wandered around for 20 minutes and left. It happened 3 more times that week, always during off hours, always alone. She never spoke to the staff. She just drifted through the aisles, touching things, glancing at the security cameras, then leaving without a word. The following Thursday, she sat across the street on the bus stop bench for nearly half an hour watching the store. I didn't go outside. I didn't even look directly at her. I just kept working. That night, Brianna called. She sounded tense. Our mom had called her out of nowhere, said she missed her, said I'd become cold, bitter, difficult. That I was punishing the family and that she was worried about my mental state. A soft smear campaign. I asked Brianna what she said back. She told me I said maybe you're just finally standing up for yourself and maybe it's not punishment, it's consequences. That shut them up for a few days. Until Saturday. It was one of our busiest days. I was behind the register filling in after an employee called out sick. The line stretched halfway to the back of the store. I was exhausted. My leg throbbed. And then right in the middle of everything they walked in together. I hadn't seen them side by side like that in years. It felt fake, forced, like a performance staged for an audience that had already stopped caring. They didn't grab a cart. They didn't shop. They walked straight to the register as if the other customers didn't exist. I didn't say a word. I just kept scanning items. A box of cereal. A bottle of ketchup. A pack of toilet paper. My dad leaned in first and said, we need to talk. I replied, you're interrupting a line. My mom stepped forward. We're not trying to fight. We're just worried. This isn't like you. I asked, which part? The boundaries or the independence? Neither of them answered. Then my dad said, we raised you. You owe us at least a conversation. That was the wrong sentence. I looked him straight in the eye and said, you didn't raise me. I raised myself while paying your bills. He went quiet. My mom looked like she might cry, but I knew better. They hadn't come for me. They'd come for control. There were people behind them. A man in a suit checking his watch. A mother wrangling 2 toddlers. Everyone pretending not to listen. My parents stood there a second too long, like they thought guilt might still work if they held the pose long enough. It didn't. They turned and walked out. No groceries. No second attempt. But I knew it wasn't over. That night Brianna messaged me, I booked my ticket. I'll be home in 2 weeks. It should have brought relief, and it did, just a little. Mostly, it made my stomach twist. I knew exactly what our parents would do next. They couldn't get through me, so they'd aim for her. Brianna landed on a Tuesday night, exactly 2 weeks after she sent that message. I picked her up from the airport in sweatpants and an oversized hoodie, my cane propped against the passenger seat. She didn't say much when she saw me. She just wrapped her arms around me so tightly I almost lost my balance. She looked different, older. Not in a bad way. Just like someone who'd had to grow up fast the way I had. That made me sad because I'd always tried to protect her from that. But there she was, wiser, sharper, still soft but no longer naive. We grabbed tacos on the way home and sat in the car with the windows down talking about nothing. Professors. Campus gossip. A guy in her dorm who played guitar way too loudly. Neither of us mentioned our parents. Not until we pulled into my apartment complex and she asked do they know him back. I shook my head and told her to let me handle it. She said I don't think they'll let you. She was right. The next morning I was still in bed when Luis called. His voice was oddly calm, which I'd learned was a bad sign. He said your dad just showed up at the store with some guy in a suit. I sat up so fast I nearly knocked over the glass of water on my nightstand. According to Luis, they walked in right at 8 a.m. Before the first customer arrived. The man in the suit introduced himself as a family business advisor and said they were there to discuss ownership structure. Luis told me my dad had claimed I'd given them partial ownership years ago, that they'd been helping manage the business all along, and that I'd recently shut them out of what he called their rightful share. Luis said he wasn't authorized to discuss anything without me present. My dad's response was, tell Monica if she doesn't start acting right things will get ugly. I was already halfway out the door before Luis finished the call. Brianna insisted on coming with me. She said she wasn't going to sit at home while they tried to pull something like this. When we arrived they were still there, my parents and the mystery man in the suit, standing near the produce section like they were waiting for an interview. My dad wore his nicest jacket, the one he only pulled out for funerals and court dates. My mom looked like she'd been crying before they walked in. I didn't speak right away. I went straight to the back office, opened the safe, pulled out the master file and came back out. I didn't trust this guy. He wasn't a lawyer. He had no paperwork. Just presence. Just pressure. He introduced himself again, smoothing his tone, and said your father tells me you had an informal agreement. He also told people I was the dumb one in the family, I said. That doesn't make it true. The advisor flinched. My dad crossed his arms. My mom stepped in saying they just wanted to sort things out quietly. That they didn't want to take anything. They just wanted acknowledgement. She said that without their support I never would have opened the store in the first place. I asked what kind of support she meant. The meals I cooked for them while working 2 jobs? The thousands I spent covering their rent when they forgot to pay? Or the years of guilt they used to keep me in line? Neither of them answered. That's when Brianna stepped forward. You didn't build this, she said. Monica did. You drained her and now you're mad. She finally turned off the faucet. The man in the suit looked visibly uncomfortable. I think he realized this wasn't the easy win my dad had promised. Then Luis appeared holding a folder. I hadn't known he had it. Turns out he'd been quietly documenting everything for months. Every time my parents took money from the register, used the back room to store their junk, grabbed groceries on credit, tried to intimidate employees. Receipts. Timestamps. Security stills. He handed the folder to me. I passed it to the advisor. He flipped through 3 pages before saying I wasn't made aware of this. I think I'll excuse myself. Then he left. My parents didn't. My dad looked like he wanted to say more. He looked at me, then at Brianna, then back at me again. After everything we did for you. That's the problem, I said. You think using me counts as raising me? I said. My mom reached for Brianna's arm, but Brianna pulled away. Then they left. They didn't slam the door or cause a scene. They just walked out of the store like customers who'd realized they couldn't afford anything inside. That night Brianna and I ate leftovers on the couch. She rested her feet in my lap and we watched the dumbest reality TV we could find. She didn't tell me I was right. She didn't say she was proud. She didn't have to. She was there and she'd seen everything. That mattered more to me than any apology ever could. After that scene my parents vanished. No more unannounced visits. No fake emergencies. No concerned texts from unknown numbers. They went completely silent like someone had pulled the power cord on their nonsense. I should have felt relieved. I didn't. The silence was too clean, too sudden. It didn't feel like resolution. It felt like strategy, like they were regrouping, looking for another angle. I told Brianna, and she agreed. We kept busy anyway. She extended her stay without much discussion, buying groceries like it was her place too. We fell into a rhythm, cooking, watching bad TV, laughing more than I thought was possible after everything. For the first time since the accident, life started to feel steady. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling they weren't done. Then the first ripple hit. One of our delivery vendors, an older guy named Dennis who supplies local meat and eggs, called me sounding confused. He said my dad had reached out, told him I was taking a medical break, and claimed he'd be handling invoices now. He'd even tried to set up a meeting. Dennis didn't bite. He'd known me since I opened the store and said he didn't like the way my dad talked, too slick, too confident. That's what tipped him off. I thanked him, hung up, and immediately sent a formal notice to all our vendors. No one is authorized to speak on behalf of the store except me or Luis. Anyone claiming otherwise is impersonating management. It was exhausting cleaning up messes I hadn't made. I was still doing rehab for my leg twice a week, barely sleeping, and now I was playing defense against my own parents. Then it got worse. A week later my landlord pulled me aside in the parking lot. He said my mom had called his office directly, claiming she was worried about my mental health. She said she was concerned I wasn't managing things well and asked whether the lease was still stable. She wasn't banging on my door anymore. She was planting seeds, quietly, carefully, in other people's ears. When I told Brianna, she didn't speak right away. Then she asked, "Do you think they'd ever stop if no one told them to?" I shook my head. No. They only stop when something breaks. She nodded, thoughtful. The next morning she got a text, "Brianna, we need to talk, please. Your sister is making a huge mistake. Let us explain." I saw the message over her shoulder and my stomach dropped, but her expression didn't change. I told her, "Block them." She shook her head. "Not yet. I want to try something first." That scared me. I asked what she meant. She said they'd never heard the truth from someone who wasn't actively fighting them. Maybe it needed to come from her. I told her I didn't want her dragged any deeper into their mess than she already was. She promised she'd be careful, said she'd go in with her eyes wide open. I didn't stop her, even though every part of me wanted to. She met them at a diner the next day. I didn't go. I couldn't. I stayed home, stared at the wall, and imagined all the ways it could go wrong. She came back 3 hours later. Her coat smelled like syrup and old coffee. She didn't speak until we sat down. Then she told me they hadn't come to apologize. They'd come to rewrite everything. Apparently, the moment she sat down, my mom started crying. She said she felt abandoned. Said I was acting irrationally and that she was afraid I might hurt myself from the stress. That was the news story, concerned parents worried about their daughter's well-being. Brianna told me I asked them if they even remembered what hospital you were in after the accident. They didn't answer. Then my dad cut in cold and businesslike. He said they'd talked it over and thought Brianna could step in for me. If Monica isn't up to it, someone has to keep things going. They offered her a made-up role, assistant manager, family liaison, something vague and ridiculous. She told them it wasn't a family business. It was mine. Then she stood up and walked out. Just like that. When she finished telling me, I didn't speak for a while. Not because I didn't believe her, but because I hadn't expected anyone to finally tell them the truth to their faces and leave without being pulled back in. She'd broken their pattern. That night we sat on the balcony with mugs of tea. City lights glowed beneath us and the air smelled like rain. She said, "I'm done trying to fix it. I don't want them to ruin you again." And for the first time in my life I realized I wasn't fighting alone. She wasn't there to mediate. She wasn't there to make peace. She was there for me. A week passed after the diner. No texts. No calls. No surprise drop-ins. It was strange how quickly things went quiet again, but this time it felt different, not like a pause before another strike. It felt final, like they'd finally realized they'd lost. I wish I could say I celebrated. That I threw some kind of freedom party or slept better knowing it was over. But it wasn't like that. It was quieter. Easier in some ways. The store was stable. Luis had taken on more of the day-to-day without me even asking. Brianna started looking for part-time work nearby and hinted that she might stay longer than she'd planned. My leg was healing slowly and I only needed the cane on really bad days. Still something lingered, an ache I hadn't expected. I caught myself checking the sidewalk outside the store out of habit, half expecting to see them watching from across the street again. I hated that I still looked. Hated that some part of me hadn't fully let go. Then on a rainy Thursday afternoon they came one last time. Both of them. No car. No umbrellas. Just soaked jackets and plastic grocery bags clutched in their hands like they didn't quite know what to do with them. I saw them through the front window of the store. This time I didn't flinch. I just watched. Luis moved toward the door, but I told him to let them in. He hesitated, then stepped aside. I wasn't afraid anymore, just tired. They came in slowly, looking around like they barely recognized the place. My mom had a tissue balled up in her sleeve. My dad looked thinner, less certain. For a moment they just stood there in front of the counter, dripping rain onto the floor. Then my mom said something I didn't expect. "We're not here to ask for anything." I didn't respond. I just waited. My dad cleared his throat. "You were right about everything," he said, then looked away like the words themselves hurt. My mom stepped forward and reached into one of the plastic bags, pulling out an envelope. "It's just some old photos," she said. "You and Brianna. And the deed to the van. We won't be using it anymore. It's in your name now." She didn't say she was sorry. Neither did he. But it wasn't nothing. Before I could reply, my mom glanced at Brianna, who had just stepped out of the office behind me. "We know we ruined this," she said, "but you're still our daughters. And we hope that one day you'll let us try again." Then they left. Just like that. No yelling. No guilt. No demands. I didn't cry, but something cracked inside me, not in a bad way. It felt like pressure finally releasing from a sealed jar. Brianna came to stand beside me. For a while neither of us spoke. We just watched the rain streak down the window. Then she asked, "If they come back, what are you going to do?" "I don't know," I said. "But it'll be my choice this time." She nodded. That night we sat on the floor of my apartment eating microwaved popcorn and flipping through the old photos. Some of them I hadn't seen in over a decade. One showed me and Brianna standing in the store when it was still just a dusty shell, before opening day, before the signs, before everything. We were standing in the middle of the empty aisles laughing at something just out of frame. I looked happier than I remembered, and that's when it hit me. I hadn't cut my parents out to punish them. I'd done it so I could remember who I was without them. Sitting there beside my sister, the one person who had always stood by me when it mattered, I finally did. I saw myself clearly. Not angry. Not broken. Not afraid. Just me rebuilding from scratch. And this time for real.